to be certified on occupational health, safety, and environment management by March 2005. So I like to just tell you about it that we got our Uran plant certified somewhere before that, and we had to pay maybe around 11 lakhs of rupees for establishment of environment management system and 3 lakhs rupees as a fee for certification. And for another plant, it took around 1 year. And another plant was Hajira plant, where we have to pay around same amount of money to get it certified. But now the task which was given to us. Hello. So task given to us was to get more than 1,000 certificates in 1 year, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the core group members. There were only 4 core group members, and so we thought what sort of certification has to be there. So at the time for environment management, it was ISO 14001. For quality management, it was ISO 9001, and there was no certification for occupational health and safety management in ISO. That was Occupational Health Safety Assessment Series, and then International Safety Rating System and ISM code, International Maritime System code for the mobile establishment. So, which was mandatory for ships and offshore mobile facilities and addresses all the components of safety, environment, and quality management. So, in fact, the facilities which have this ISM code do not require any other certification. So, for mobile facilities, we need to have the ISM code, but for other facilities, we need to have some of the other certification to cover environment management, occupational health, safety, and quality management. So we thought to get ISO 9001, OSHA's 18001 certified, and ISO 14001 for all static and mobile establishment in on land and for static establishment in offshore, and for the geophysical field parties, and ISM code for all offshore mobile facilities. That was the task which was assigned to us, and I would like to tell you that within 1 year, we could get 99% of the certification done for the first time for any particular industry in the world. So, but the question comes, why should we get all these certifications? So first and foremost thing is that we need to have a proactive system in place instead of having a reactive system. So if you have a proactive system, I'm audible to everyone, please. Anybody can respond?
Yes, sir, audible.
Okay, thank you, sir. So
yes, sir, yes, sir.
Thank you very much for your response. So in fact, reactive system means that if any legislation comes, and then if we have to comply that, then we just react to the any legislation which is coming. But proactive means that before any legislation come, we are ready for protection of environment, for safety, occupational health, and quality management system. That is why all these international standards, which are valid, certification is valid for 3 years, are proactive in place. And basically, this helps in reduction in accidents and compensation claim. As you understand that any accident occur, it is not only the loss to an individual, but it is the loss to the organization, because such an experienced person who was working for so many years, his experience is no more available to you, and then loss to the society, ultimately to loss to the nation also. And organization has to pay lots of compensation claims also. So these proactive system in place helps in reduction in accidents. And then basically when we're talking of occupational health, then these helps in improved quality and health of human resources also, because ergonomics comes into the picture, and we are bothered about various aspects of the occupational health. And then there are lots of legislation. As you understand that first legislation in India came in 1974 as a Water Act, and then 1981 as a Air Act, and 1986 as EPA, Environmental Protection Act. And after 1986 Environmental Protection Act, the power was given to the government to confer, where various rules can be brought out from this 1986 Environmental Act, EPA Act, which is also called as Umbrella Act. And 1974 Water Act came after 1972 Stockholm Conference, where for the first time developed and developing countries came together and they decided for the protection of environment, and which was attended by three prime ministers, and late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was one of them. And then it helps in reduced insurance premium also, because if you're working in any industry or oil industry, then you have to pay lots of premium, insurance premium, if your industry is dealing in the hazardous substances or working in the tough area. And this helps in developing the corporate image, also having such certifications at the time, somewhere in 2004 2005, will help any organization to develop a corporate image that you are bothered about environment management, occupational health, safety of the employees, and quality management. And it helps in optimal utilization of resources also. And sometimes it was a qualification for international projects also, that you can bid only when you are internationally certified. I'd like to tell you that these certificates are, as I've told you, are valid for 3 years, and this is given by the third party. Once it is given by the third party, then it carries an importance. So, as I said, that at the time when this task was assigned, that we had a well-defined HSE policy, HSE setup, Institute of Petroleum Health, Safety, Environment Management at Goa, and we were conforming to the legislative requirement also, and lots of other initiatives were also taken at that time, but which expressed the clear commitment of any organization for QHSE. But still, that was not enough, because ultimate aim was to shift from an informal, non-accredited management system to an accredited management system. It means shifting from traditional management system to a modern management system with proactive approach. And then once you have a proactive approach, then you adapt to changing circumstances in the field of environment management, safety, occupational health, and quality, which is the essence of any organization. So credibility is through a recognized third party speaking of our QHSE performance, instead that we keep on singing songs that organization is doing excellent for protection of environment, or doing something safety, or for occupational health, or for quality, but if a third party says about it, then it carries lots of weight. Hence there was a necessity for QHSE. So there is paradigm shift from traditional management system to a modern management system. What happens in traditional management system? Actions are guided by legislation, and enforcement tries to keep the external commitment, which is a reactive approach, as I already explained. But in modern management system, actions are guided by one's own internal commitment for quality, health, safety, and environment performance on continual basis. A proactive approach, which is a formal management system instead of a informal management system in traditional management system. So here I've used a word called continual basis. So it is different from continuous. There is difference. The word continual used here means that it is based on PDCA cycle. That is Dr. Deming cycle, or Dr. Deming circle. That is plan, do, check, and act. So plan, you have to plan your activities, means you have to document what you are going to do. Then doing the commitment given in the documents for safety environment management is then implemented. Then checking is by either through feedback or through internal auditing, external auditing, and then ultimately acting on that by adding the gaps identified during the process to the planning stage again. It means you move ahead and then establish, then move ahead. So this is the difference between the continual improvement and continuous improvement. So I'll be talking about only one standard here instead of talking about three standards. The big recent one, this is ISO 45001, which has come in 2008, and usually there is a grace of three years. There is a grace of 3 years. It came in it was published on 12th March 2018. So the grace of 3 years means by 21 it was to be upgraded. OSHA's, which was earlier there, is to be upgraded, was to be upgraded in ISO 45001 2008. The ultimate aim of bringing this standard was that all these standards, ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and ISO 45001, are on the same line. There are a few things which have been added in this. In fact, I would like to just tell you that basically there are certain words which are used in this standard. First is the shell. Wherever the word shell is used in this standard, I'm just giving you the basic concepts. That is indicates that is a requirement which has to be implemented by the organization which is going to adopt any of these standard. And then should word, wherever it is used in a, which indicates a recommendation, may indicates a permission for anything, and can, if can is used, that indicates a possibility or a capability. So these four words, it means wherever any word like shell is used in this standard, either in ISO 9001, which is now 2015 edition, or ISO 14001 2015, or ISO 14001 2018, anywhere the word shell is used, it means it has to be, it is a requirement which has to be implemented. There are certain things which have been introduced in the context of the organization. The clauses for these standards are from 4 to 10.3. 10.3 is this continual improvement, which I have just emphasized, and 4 indicates something like that, that identification of internal and external issues of the organization and identification of the interested parties. These two things have been added, that you need to identify for any organization who is the interested party. Interested party means any organization or any individual which gets affected by the working of a particular company, organization. And issues, what are the basic issues, internal issues of any organization or external issues of any organization, to help that organization to combat those issues. Ultimately, if you keep on identifying, then you keep on addressing those issues also. That is was the aim of this standard in the beginning itself. Then one more clause on particularly leadership has been added. That is the clause number 5, or let's say just 5.1. It says here the emphasis is much more given on the leadership. It means that these are the system which flows from the top to down. So leadership has to be very proactive for implementing these standards. So top management shall demonstrate leadership and commitment with respect to the environment management system, if it is a ISO 14001 2015 standard, taking accountability for the effectiveness of the environment management system. Here they are talking of the accountability, right? Ensuring that environment policy and environment objective are established and are compatible with the strategic direction and the context of the organization. Ensuring the integration of the environment management system requirement into the organization business processes. Ensuring the resources needed for the environment management system are available. Communicating the importance of effective environmental management and of conforming to the environment management system requirements. Ensuring that environment management system achieves its intended outcomes, directing and supporting persons to contribute to the effectiveness of the environment management system, promoting continual improvement, supporting other relevant management roles to demonstrate their leadership as it applies to their areas of responsibility. So now this is a class which has been added in this recent edition of ISO 14001 2015, or ISO 9001 2015, or ISO 45001 2018, which gives an emphasis on leadership. So leadership has to be very proactive. This is the major change. And one more change has been added, that is risk-based thinking. I'll be just talking about that. But when we're talking of the occupational health and safety, the prime concern in ISO 45001, which deals with the occupational health and safety, is work-related hazards and accident, ill health, labor costs, financial implications for that, and legal implications and insurance liabilities, company image, corporate image, and productivity. These are the prime concern of any occupational health and safety. So when we are talking of ISO 45001, then if we talk of work-related hazards and accident, then we need to identify all the hazards associated with that particular organization. We need to have hazards and risks. The basic difference between hazard and risk is cause and effect relation. If we talk of ISO 14001, this is environmental aspect. An environmental aspect means an element of an organization, activity, product, or services which can interact with the environment. So there, the issue is of environmental aspect and environmental impact. But in ISO 45000, this is hazard and risk. Then for occupational health, it is ill health. So whenever we carry out, we start establishing ISO 14001. If I talk of the environment management, so here we need to carry out the initial environmental review. As I said, that in ISO 45001, we need to identify the hazard. In ISO 14001, we need to identify the environmental aspect. So basically same, the cause and effect. Then we need to carry out the initial environmental review of that particular organization. That includes environmental aspect, activities resulting from environmental impact, present status, and recommendations. So this sort of initial environmental review is carried out. So you need to identify all the environmental aspects. Again, I'll repeat that an element of an activity which can activity, products, or services which can interact with the environment. So anything, any organization, activity, product, or services which interact with the environment comes as an environmental aspect. And then this is a cause, then what will be the effect? What will be the environmental impact? Similarly, in ISO 45000, it is hazards and risk. So coming back to ISO 45001, so this is how Bird's model says that if near miss, you must be understanding that near miss is any something has happened, but there is no impact. Suppose you are sitting and tube light falls down from the roof, neither you are hurt, nor the tube light is broken, but something has occurred. So that is called near miss. That can be because of the unsafe practices or unsafe conditions. So if you report 600 near miss, then you can avert one major injury. This is what the Bird's model says. So that's why it becomes very important to report near misses and find out the root cause of the near miss. So if we talk of the HERA, hazard identification and risk estimation, basically it is a EDIM approach, that is identify, that is IEDIM, identify all risk exposure, evaluate the risk in each exposure, then develop a plan which includes terminate, treat, tolerate, or transfer. Then implement the plan, and then monitor either by measuring or by correction. That's what we are doing in this EDIM approach. So if we identify hazards in ISO 45000 in safety and occupational health, if you think of your organization, wherever you are working, if you are working in a university or you are working in a college, you are working in any place, what could be safety hazard? If you identify all the hazards, in fact, whenever we are sitting, we are not thinking about safety or environment management. But once you start identifying the hazards, or once you start identifying the environmental aspects, then you try to find out the solution. So various hazards in any industry could be slip, fall, falling objects, lifting and handling, operational hazards, fire and explosion, inhalation, eye damage, skin contact, or electric shock. These can be some of the general, safety hazard. Similarly, for occupational hazard, if you work in an industry, particularly dust is there, fibers are there, fumes, smokes, mist, gases, vapors, noise can be there, vibration, temperature, radiation, illumination, pressure, virus, bacteria, fungi, repetitive motion, monotony and fatigue. These are the two things which we usually don't talk about, you don't think about that. You keep on working on a particular place, then you understand that my reflexes are sufficient for doing it. But if you anytime you just don't pay attention, there is probability of, accident. Similarly, fatigue is there. So you are driving a car, you are driving from for a long distance. Sometimes then you start realizing that you are not driving a car, somebody else is driving a car. So that becomes so monotonous. So that is the one of the cause of accident. So risk, as I said, could be on the basis of the severity, probability. Severity we can define major, serious, minor, incidental, and probability frequent, occasional, seldom, likely. So severity you can define on the basis of your organization. For major, it can be for personal, that if there is a fatality, environmental issues, or a major or total destruction to process area, or where downtime in excess of 90 days. You can, change this on a particular organization. You can define according to your needs. Organization, whenever we try to get certification for a particular institute, then in ISO term we call it an organization. So if severity is serious, so you can define on the basis of your organization. It's not necessary. This is a model which can be applied to any organization based on their need. It can be personal, for serious injury, environmental, or facilities if it is estimated downtime is from 10 to 90 days. Minor, if there is single injury, environmental, release which results in agency notification or permit violation, or facilities, some equipment damage, 1 to 10 days of downtime. And incidental, no injury, environmentally recordable event, minimal equipment damage. So this could be severity. Similarly, frequency could be frequent, occasional, seldom, unlikely, and all these things for a particular size of organization, particularly their work, it can be defined. It frequent can be 6 months. It, depending on the organization, it can be 1 day also. So you need to use this model according to your organization. So this is how the risk quantification has been defined. So it can be severe, frequent. So severe, it can be severity, as I said, major, serious, minor, incidental. These parameters can be defined. But for frequency, it can be frequent, occasional, seldom, and unlikely. So the red indicates the major one, right? Which is to be tackled on priority. Green means this can be, you can prioritize that it can be done later on. So this red, wherever it is indicated, has to be brought down to the green stage. So it means that extreme risk that cannot accept this risk, high risk must implement extensive risk control. Moderate risk means may require control, and low risk means some risk control may still be justified. So ultimately, aim is to bring it from extreme risk to low risk. So if you look at the 7 most common causes of an accident, is that first and foremost is ignoring safety procedure. Once you lay down any procedure and you just try to ignore that procedure, you try to do anything on the base of your experience, that may lead to an accident. Taking shortcut is another example which has caused many accidents in past, and until unless we take care of it, it is going to be very dangerous. Being overconfident that I've been doing this job from so many days, I'll keep on doing. Poor housekeeping, failure to pre-plan work, starting a job without complete instructions, you are over enthusiastic, and mental distraction from your work, that you are emotionally disturbed because of your family, because of your relations at the work area, that may lead to an accident. So first of all, as I said, we need to identify the risk. We need to evaluate the risk. If you are unable to tackle that, then try to find out an alternative for that particular risk. Then terminate or eliminate the risk. And if not possible, treat it by isolating the risk. And ultimately, last step is personal protective equipment. If you are unable to do anything, that this is the last resort, that you need to have all the pp even otherwise which is required to be followed. So if you just look at this, just look at this is a hazard identification. I said you can see these people are working. You just keep on looking at the various hazards which have come out, like trip, compressed energy source, people behind, eye contact, over exertion, noise, loose tools, dropped objects, loose clothing, cutting, impact, escape route is not fully defined, crush, crushing, your foot can be crushed by these objects, people behind, if you, this fellow will move back, damaged sling, waste material which is haphazardly lying, trip again, and falling. This can be a source of fall also. So these are the things, and various statistics for oil and gas industry accident and injury types are that 18% accidents are caused by struck by object, and 30% overexertion, 10% fall to the lower level. On the same level fall 9%, body reaction 9%, and some miscellaneous also there. And then injury type is basically sprains, strains, tears, that is 35%, fractures 17%, brushes and contusions 8%, cuts 5%, dislocation 5%. So if you just try to find out what are the main causes, then that again I'll say that stuck by pipes, over exertion while pulling, while lifting the pipes, ducts, bars, boxes, bags, over exertion, pulling, pushing wrenches, hoses, machine parts, falling, jumping from a non-moving vehicle, fall from a stairs, ladder, slipping on ice or mud, tripping on matting pipe, a motor vehicle incident, overturned, caught in drilling and other machinery, exposure to noise, like that. So I'll just tell you some of the safety hazard could be vehicle collision on drilling rig, or stuck by, caught by. These days, if we talk about this, I'll just say this thing that this finger injury is also very important these days, which is being given very much importance. So as I said that another thing which is being talked about is risk-based thinking. Now, in earlier standards, there were three terminologies which were being used: correction, corrective measures, and preventive measures. Correction means that you do anything, and anything happens, then you just correct it, right? Corrective action means that anything happens, you correct it so that it does not occur in future again. And preventive action means that you take a step before any incident, so that any wrong thing does not occur. But now in these three new standards, this preventive action has been replaced. Now we get surprised that which was the most important thing, that you need to take an action beforehand, so that no incident occurs, has been replaced. But this has been replaced by a more effective tool called as risk-based thinking. They say that why do you always think that preventive action has to be specified? It has to be a part and parcel of your thinking. Like when we are talking of the COVID, right? We talk of the risk associated. Why don't we think of the opportunities associated in that risk? I always say that COVID is the best, teacher for environment management. So similarly, when COVID is there, like these days we have some new variant, and we don't know exactly about that. So many people are talking about that, but that has, enabled us to talk to you through this window, which we were never talking about. We used to gather at some place and used to travel a lot, and ultimately causing an impact on environment and taking off from your, organization going there. But here you can sitting on your terminal, you can talk to so many people. It was earlier also there, but we never used to, do that. So it is risk-based thinking is that always for the risks you need to look and approach. If you start thinking about it, you start thinking about in your organization that if any risk is there, then what is the hidden opportunity in that risk? These three standards focus on this concept, that this is a key change, as I said, that in ISO 9001, which is a quality management system, ISO 14001, which is environment management system, and ISO 45001, which is occupational and safety management system, to establish a systematic approach to risk rather than treating it as a single component. So here I'm taking the example from ISO 9001, which is, as I said, all these clauses of these three standards are totally same. So if you're talking of 9001, we're similarly talking of 45001 and ISO 14001 also. So as I said, that there was a preventive action which was there, but now by taking a risk-based approach, an organization becomes proactive rather than purely reactive, preventing or reducing undesired effects and promoting continual improvement. So that is what the risk-based approach is. And risk-based thinking, when we are talking, preventive action is automatic when a management system is risk-based. Risk-based thinking is something we all do automatically and often subconsciously. For example, I'll just give you a very simple example for understanding this concept. Let's suppose I have to cross a road. When I have to cross a road, I look for traffic before I begin. I will not step in front of any moving cars. The concept of risk has always been implicit in all these standards, and this revision makes it more explicit and builds it into the whole management system. So the risk is considered from the beginning and throughout the standard, making preventive action part of strategic planning. So risk-based thinking is already part of the process approach. As I said, to cross the road, I may go directly or I may use a nearby footbridge. So what is to be chosen? If you have to go, if you think of it, then risk-based thinking can also help to identify opportunities which need to be considered as the positive side of risk. So crossing the road directly gives me an opportunity to reach the other side quickly, but there is an increased risk of injury from moving cars. So what should I do? So risk of using a footbridge is that I have a meeting on other side of the road. So now I can either cross the road or I can use the footbridge, right? So if I cross the road, the risk is involved with the moving vehicles. And if I use the footbridge, I may be delayed for the meeting. So opportunity is not always directly related to risk, but it is always related to the objectives. By considering a situation, it may be possible to identify opportunities to improve. So a survey leading directly under the road, pedestrian traffic lights, or diverting the road so that the area has no traffic. So it becomes necessary to analyze the opportunity and consider which can or should be acted on. So as I said, that if I have to cross the road, as a simple example, what are the various options available and what are the risks involved? So that has to be used for that particular organization. In an organization, if we use any action, what are the various risks involved and what are the options involved, and we have to evaluate the risk with the options. So if I cross a busy road with many fast moving cars, the risks are not the same as if the road is small with very few moving cars. It is also necessary to consider such things as weather, visibility, personal mobility, and specific personal objective. So what is acceptable? What is unacceptable? What are the advantages or disadvantages? Are there to be one process over another? So I need to safely cross a road to reach a meeting at a given time. It is unacceptable to be injured. It is unacceptable to be late. Reaching my goal more quickly must be balanced against the likelihood of injury. It is more important that I reach my meeting uninjured, and then it is for me to reach my meeting on time. Both the things are there. So then you have to understand your risk. Then you need to analyze the situation. Footbridge is 200 meters away. If you use that, you will be delayed. And if you cross the road, there is possibility of an accident. So I decide that walking directly across the road carries an acceptably low level of risk of injury and will help me reach my meeting on time. The main objective of this tender is to provide confidence in organizations' ability to consistently provide customers with confirming goods and services and to enhance customer satisfaction if it is ISO 9001. The concept of risk in this context of ISO 9001 relates to uncertainty in achieving these objectives. So, basically, then if we're working for an organization, I have to think how can I avoid this risk and how can I eliminate or mitigate this risk. So this is based on the likelihood and the frequency I have to decide. So what same example of crossing the road, then I may be hit by a vehicle, I may be delayed. All these things I have to be taken into consideration that I can reduce the probability of being hit by a car. I plan to cross at a time when there are no cars moving near me and so reduce the likelihood of an accident. I also plan to cross the road at a place where I have a good visibility. So this can be, used in there in your organization. How to have a minimum risk and accomplish your task in a stipulated period. I move to the side of the road, check there are no barriers to crossing. I check there are no cars coming. I continue to look for the cars whilst crossing the road. So these are the example which I'm just giving a simple example of crossing the road. Then I arrive at other side of the road unharmed, and plan work and undesired effects have been avoided. So what is the learning from the experience is that how to learn from this experience, that I repeat the plan over several days and then find out what is the time where the vehicles are minimum movement of vehicles are there and I can cross it safely. This gives me data to understand in the changing context of time whether quantity of cars directly affects the effectiveness of the plan and increase the probability that I will not achieve my objective, being on time and avoiding injury. So this can be extrapolated to your organization, that what are the basic risks, which hazards you have identified, what are the risks associated, and how those can be mitigated or eliminated. So there can be opportunities in the risk also. Can I move the meeting place so that road does not have to be crossed? Can I change the time of the meeting so that I cross the road when it is quiet? Can we meet on a such media like we're talking electronically? So these are the certain opportunities. So basically, as I said, the probability and if you look at this is allowed as low as reasonably possible. And these are the risks, which red one we have talked, that high risk, which are generally unacceptable, and these are the risks which are generally acceptable. So for any particular organization, we have to think according to that. So risk-based thinking, as I said, that preventive management has been replaced by it. So it improves the governance, establish a proactive culture of improvement, and assist with statutory and regulatory compliance, assures consistency of quality of products and services, and improves customer confidence and satisfaction. Customer, we must understand, anybody who is using services of your organization is a customer. We have to, these standards say like that. ISO 9001 says like this. So it's a not a new thinking. It's a something we are already doing, but ultimately we have to adopt to it. It is ongoing, ensures greater knowledge of risk and improves preparedness, increase the probability of reaching objective, reduces the probability of negative results, and make prevention a habit. That is why that preventive maintenance has been removed and risk-based thinking has been added. I'll suggest to every person who is listening to me, if you are working at any place, you just try to use this concept, which is a novel concept in these three international standards, that you always have a risk-based thinking. You try to identify the hazards in your area and the risk estimate risks, which are the maximum. The risks which are going to harm, give the maximum harm, how it can be brought down. When once you start doing it, once you start thinking it, automatically you will develop a procedure, even if you are not going for any certification. Now, talking of environmental auditing, see, basically there is a confusion between environmental auditing and environmental inspection. Lots of people are talking of environmental inspection as environmental audit, but environmental audit is a full-fledged activity which covers pre-audit, audit activities, and post-audit activities. Pre-audit activities includes preparation of a schedule.
Sir, slides are not moving. Perhaps it is showing hazard identification slides, sir.
Oh, no slide, but which hazard identification, sir?
These three people are working on wellhead. That is showing.
So that was the long back, sir.
I think, sir, slides are not moving.
So may I come again, sir? Should I? Again I'll
No,
come
no,
to
sir.
this.
Don't need to
No,
repeat, sir. Okay.
no, I'm not repeating. I'm now environmental auditing. You are able to
Audible.
you are
Now
able
it
to
is
see it.
moving.
So I'll move
Environmental
like this.
auditing.
Instead of moving that way, I think that is creating some issues. I'll move this way, that not full
Okay, okay.
screen. Okay, now
Okay.
it is moving, sir.
Moving, sir. It is now environmental auditing, pre-audit activities.
Okay. So you could have told me earlier, sir. Uh,
I was actually confused whether you were talking about hazard means incorporating all these things. Sorry, sir.
no issue, sir. Any query anybody wants to ask, sir? I have covered PHSC with novel concepts of risk-based thinking. Any query from anyone? Okay, now we're talking of the environmental auditing. As I said, that confusion is always there, but audit is a full-fledged activity, and inspection is a part of an audit. We have lots of confusion about this, sir. So when we talk of the audit schedule, that audit is always informed. It is pre-informed. It is not like that. It is a sudden thing which is being carried out. You need to prepare a schedule, which department function to be audited, when to be audited, and who will do the auditing and what is to be audited. It has to be circulated in advance. That's what is the the audit schedule. So it is known to you that who is coming and at what time auditing is done. Even if suppose you understand that auditing is to be carried out, then you can come prepare before an auditor comes. It's not like that. Auditors are much more experienced. They can read in between the line also. Whatsoever you have done for them, they can understand that you have done for them only. It's not a part and parcel of your activity. So ultimately, experienced auditor can always very well see that. But looking at the audit team selection, usually it is said that we need to have a buddy system. 2 or 3 auditors are supposed to carry out the audit so that the audit can be done effectively. So based on the qualification, and the most important thing is the person who is carrying out audit has to be independent from area under audit. It doesn't mean, it means that if you're working at a particular department, chemistry department, or say petroleum engineering department of Dibrugarh University, then if you start carrying out audit of your, I mean, particular department, then that will not be an effective audit. You can conduct, you can carry out audit of some, say, English department, say chemistry department, but you should not carry out audit of your department, because it has to be independent from area under audit. Otherwise, nobody, I mean, tells about his or her weaknesses. And basically, on the basis of experience and expertise and training undertaken, the audit team is selected. Having the knowledge of that particular place is one of the important thing. And then pre-audit also include conducting an audit. Pre-audit includes agree the scope of the audit. That is one of the most important thing, that once we carry out the audit, then we need to understand the scope of the audit, right? I mean, up to which place my boundary exists, कहाँ तक मैं जा सकता हूँ. I need not to go beyond that. That is beyond, if anything is beyond the scope of the audit, I need not to carry out that. So scope has to be very well defined in the beginning, that environmental audit of Petroleum Engineering Department of Dibrugarh University is to be carried out. It does not, it means that I'll not be going to other department, and I'll be covering all the aspects of the petroleum engineering only. So what will be the methods of assessment of particular audit? That has to be very well defined in the beginning. Selection of auditor, as I said, that that you need to have a buddy system and minimum 2 auditors, or you can have 2 or 3 auditors, and those auditors should have the qualification, experience, training, as I said. And then documents review before you go to the particular place. You need to understand the documentation process, that what are the various documents prepared for that particular organization. Organization means, again, I'm talking that this is now the Petroleum Engineering Department becomes an organization when we're talking of any of these standards. And then plan the audit. Then you need to prepare a checklist. So now on receipt of schedule, auditor establish communication with the auditee. Slides are moving now, sir, now? Slides are moving?
Yes, sir, moving it is.
Okay,
Moving,
thank you.
sir.
So collection and review of the documents, which includes the various manual, policy, objective, and targets of that particular organization. Preliminary visit and preparation of checklist. Now, checklist creates lots of confusion in our mind. So checklist is a series of key points which need to be verified by seeking objective evidence. It's not a set of questions to be asked. We think that if we got a checklist, then we need to just go through that checklist, just ask those things and get back, then audit is over. So basically, the purpose of checklist is to keep the audit on track, ensure that all the key facts are verified, and it's basically a base from where you initiate the audit. It means that you understand these are the key points which are to be talked about, which are to be discussed, which are to be monitored, but there are certain things which may not be mentioned in the checklist. So advantages of checklists are that this is useful guide to the audit process, that for the beginners it's good that you have something that you can go through that. Then it records evidence also, that it's not something is not there, you can always record on the checklist. And then record becomes a record of an audit also, that on 9th February that you have visited Petroleum Engineering Department. So the date is indicated, the various observations are indicated, then becomes the part of the report also. But the disadvantages are that preparation time needed. So same thing, if you are experienced, you need to have a checklist. You can very well understand what are the key points which are to be verified, and then it gives you a blinkered view. जैसे कोहलू का बैल होता है, ऐसे दो लगा दे तो गोल गोल घूमता है. Similarly, if you have a checklist, then you think that this is the thing which I have to do, and then you do it fast and get back, and audit is over. And sometimes somewhat it becomes cumbersome also, boring also, that you are doing the same thing again and again. but auditing is a very, I mean, exciting activity. So audit activities, these are the pre-audit audit activities, and audit activities include opening meeting, review of documents, interview, collection of evidence, site inspection, and closing meetings. Opening meeting and closing meeting, these are mandatory when we're talking of these QHSE standards, and there is test set protocol that how this opening meeting and closing meeting has to be carried out. Even otherwise, if you carry out the opening meeting, then it's like that the senior most person, the senior most I mean, person who is there in the organization get to know that some activity has started, and he can provide all the resources. And in closing meeting, you can always give the feedback that how you have, what are the various objective evidence, those who you have observed, where is the need of improvement. Any audit activity, the aim of any audit activity is for the improvement. Let's not get confused with the financial audit. So, what should be the auditor's skills? First and foremost, you need to be open minded. If I go to any university, say, since you are the host, I talk about you also, only that we go. I go to the Dibrugarh University, and I think that Dibrugarh University, I have never heard the name, so may not be good. So I go with the bias concept. That is not the, I mean, auditor's personal attribute. You have to go open minded. Maybe your knowledge is limited, you may not be knowing that what is there, but you need to see that and then put your observation. You need to have mature judgment. It's not that you are carried out, that you enter in some university gate and somebody misbehaves you on that gate and you just think that sabhi aise hi hai. And then you need to have analytical skill and perceive situation in a realistic way. You came from UK directly, and then you are comparing everything in eastern sector with UK. Okay, in London तो ऐसा होता था, लेकिन ये डिब्रूगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी तो ऐसा ही लगता है मेरे को. So, I mean, you need to understand where you are. So, you have to identify the situation in a realistic way, that you are in a university which has a different concept. But if you are with pre-biased concept that you think that I have to compare it with UK only, that's not a personal attribute of an auditor. Need to understand the complex operations from a broad perspective, and if possible, need to understand the role of individual units also. And then obtain and assess objective evidence. Objective evidence, as I said, didn't say that these are the gaps or these are the things which you think that need to be improved, or these are gaps which you have identified with the system. So you need to obtain and assess the objective evidence fairly, remains true to the purpose of audit. That is a very important thing. So Mr. Neog is my friend. I went to Dibrugarh University, so I met him after 4-5 years. So I said, Neog साहब, आप मुझे बता देना कि क्या क्या कमियां हैं. Now let's go for lunch. वो पुरानी बातें याद करते हैं, आप और मैं, हम कहाँ कहाँ घूमते थे. Let's just roam in the university and see the, I mean, कितना change हो गया, सब बदल गया. So have I come for conducting an audit, or have I come for, I mean, personal this thing? So I need to remain true to the purpose of audit. And this, I mean, auditee always try to use, they will try to find out a relation with the auditor somewhere, so that it can be distracted. Now, treats concerned personnel with humility. Auditor does not mean that you are sitting on a upper level. You are here for a job, and you have to treat the personnel with humility. You need to, I mean, अंडरस्टैंड दैट कभी ऑडिटी भी ऑडिटर हो सकता है, या आपका काम पर्सनल को ह्यूमिलेट करना नहीं है, आपको उनको पूरी इज्जत देके करना है. जस्ट गिव एन एग्जांपल. देयर यूज्ड टू बी एन ऑडिटर इन Mehsana लॉन्ग बैक समवेयर. आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ 90s. एंड एक दिन he came to me for the guidance, and he said, sir, मेरी बात कोई सुनते नहीं है. What is the problem? I asked him. He said कि how do you carry out audit? So I said, I'll go with you and see that how do you carry it out audit. So how he used to behave, he used to go taking these key rings in his hand like this. The aim was just to show that you are a superior person, you are not an inferior person. And then he will ask, आज आप गमबूट पहन के नहीं आए? आप तो गए. Then again he'll say, oh, you're not wearing helmet also. अब तो मैं भी चाहूं तो आपको नहीं बचा सकता. So these statements, okay, you will satisfy your ego, but it is nowhere going to improve the system. So this is not a personal attribute of an auditor. Your aim is to identify the gaps and improve the system. Reacts with the sensitivity to the national customs. Wherever you are, say they offer you tamul or gamosa, they offer you, and you say, no, मैं तो tamul खाता नहीं, ठीक है आप लाओ रख दो इधर. So you can take it, you can say, okay, sir, thank you very much for this. But if you say, no, 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 I'll not take. So that's not a personal attribute of an auditor. And performs audit without distraction. So auditor will always try to distract the auditor. They will try to find out the ways how the time in an organization may be minimized so that auditors have less time for carrying out an audit. But that you have to, I mean, see as an auditor. Say you have to immediately define that my lunch time is 1 to 1:30. So it means that you will be taking your lunch for 30 minutes. Not like that you are saying RDT to organize lunch for you, but it means that you will be giving 30 minutes for lunch, because usually it happens in the organizations that people will organize lunch at a distant place so that it takes 1 hour to go to that place and 1 hour back to the organization. So 2 hours are lost. And then lunch time. So audit time is minimized. So as a auditor, you need to check all these things. Then first and foremost thing is ability to listen. The problem is that auditor thinks that he is the most intelligent fellow and he is the most educated person in that lot, and whatsoever he say is the final. But the ability to listen is much more, because until and unless you listen to the people, how you will be finding out the gaps, identifying the gaps. Reacts effectively in stressful situation. Whenever you are carrying out audit, somebody is burdened with his work, and another person has come and sitting on his head and asking so many things. This may create a stressful situation, right? I'll just give you another example. It happened so in a one of the group gathering station, the auditing started, and I was at some other place. The external auditor came, and then suddenly मेरे को phone आने शुरू हो गए, आप इधर आ जाइए. I reached there. I saw that auditor is standing on one side, अकड़ के खड़ा है, और auditor एक तरफ सारे खड़े हैं. There was no communication. They were staring at each other. So I asked, what is the reason? Auditor told me, sir, they are trying to get OSHA's. At the time, OSHA's was there, Occupational Health and Safety. And I asked them to show their store. And as I tried to enter the store, there was a stone lying on the gate of store, and there was no light in the store. I entered. I was just I'm falling down. Somebody could catch me. Otherwise, मेरा तो आज बहुत चोट लग गया होता. So then, instead of consoling me, one of the auditing is, I asked them कि आपने ये रखा है गेट पे, आपके पत्थर है और लाइट भी नहीं है. तो one of auditing told me that आपको तो देख के चलना चाहिए था. So that was the main point of, I mean, झगड़े का जो मेन पॉइंट था कि उसका ईगो हर्ट कर दिया, एंड दे वर नॉट प्रिपेयर्ड. सो देन आई हैव टू हैंडल द सिचुएशन. आई टोल्ड, हु हैज टोल्ड यू लाइक दिस? दैट वाज अ साउथ इंडियन फेलो. सो आई टोल्ड हिम, सर इसका हिंदी प्रॉपर नहीं है. ही वाज ट्राइंग टू से दैट you should be careful, something like that, so that we'll improve this. So that Aditi, being an person from oil industry, and understood immediately. Sir, that's what I'm saying, that my Hindi is poor, sir. My meaning was only that only. So that situation could be handled. So, but so stressful situation has to be handled. So arrives at a generally acceptable conclusion, remains true to the conclusion. Whatsoever you have seen, you have seen. Whatsoever you have observed, you have observed, and able to organize an audit, because conducting an team is the most difficult task. When you are in team of 25 people, then it becomes, you can understand how much it is difficult. So as an auditor, when 3 persons are working together in a particular organization, that how you will be carrying out audit, that becomes more important. So another most important thing is interview. You need to explain why you are asking a particular question, so that you need not to show that you are very good in English and you speak very high-fi English. ऐसी लैंग्वेज का फायदा ही क्या जो ऑडिटी की समझना है. द लैंग्वेज पर्पस ऑफ एन इंटरव्यूइंग एन ऑडिटी इज दैट ही आई मीन गिव्स यू द फीडबैक. जो आप पूछते हैं उसका वो आपको ढंग से फीडबैक दे. इफ इज नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड देन इट इज ऑफ no use and we need to talk to the supervisor first, and if stressful situation occurs you may take a break. These are the six servants which you are supposed to use: what, why, when, how, where, who. These are how five w's plus one h, and this is six. How also sounds like w. These are the six servants which are yours: what you have done, why you have done, when you have done, how you have done, where you have done, who has done it. So this will give you the exact picture. And always, whenever in an audit and interviewing a person, you should ask an open-ended question. Say, if I come to you and ask you, do you have environment policy? Your answer will be yes or no. So the question ended. If you say, show me your environment policy, then you will go and bring the environment policy and the question, you can ask further question in that. Then, I don't understand, please explain. It does not mean that you are not understanding this. It means that you want to know more. What if अगर ऐसा हुआ होता, so you are just trying to get the knowledge from the auditee. Are you saying that? Silent approach. This is one approach when the people, senior auditor use, that they will ask a question and just keep on staring at you. You may answer, but still they are silent and staring at you, and then you will start feeling uncomfortable, and then you think that have I given some wrong answer or some more thing is to be given. So you keep on. You have a tendency to speak more. You just try to use this approach when you ask a question to a person, and then just have ask a question and just keep on looking at that fellow silently. So you will feel that you will understand that lots of more information is coming out. This is puzzled look. It means that it's used as intra-organization, that an organization auditor will come. अरे भाई मुझे तो कुछ आता नहीं है, मेरे को तो जबरदस्ती करके भेज दिया है, मुझे कुछ आप ही बता दो क्या है जिससे कि ठीक हो जाए. यार मेरे को तो भेज दिया, मैं क्या करूं? So this is a puzzled approach. So you will feel a pity for a fellow that यार इसको तो जबरदस्ती भेज दिया. You start telling यार ये लिख दो, ये लिख दो, ये लिख दो. So this is also approach which is being used in a negative way. So if something is good, then we need to appreciate that. So basically, as I said, that basic aim of interview is to get the feedback. The auditee takes an action and provides you the feedback. So if something is wrong, that you find that something is not as per the requirement, don't criticize. That's not your job. You have gone for the improvement of system. That is the management of that particular place has to see. Investigate why it is wrong. Don't stop the job. That is the job of a supervisor in charge. Don't argue with the supervisor. नहीं 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 आप गलत कह रहे हैं. Don't say like that. Record specific details and important. Record compliance also. And be objective. Persist if a non-conformity exists. Non-conformity to the system, to the organization, to the rules. If it is there, it is there. If you have observed and 10 people start telling, nahi, 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 it is not like, don't agree to them. You have observed yourself. Don't get annoyed. That's not your job. You are not being paid for getting annoyed. Don't take sides. You like someone, you dislike someone, so don't try to take side. It is the work for the organization, the particular organization, which is good, which is bad. Make your own judgment, plan time effectively, and always be positive. That is the most important thing. So post-audit activities includes facts, probabilities, and uncertainties in audit reporting. Basically, it has major non-conformity, minor non-conformity, and scope for improvement. Scope for improvement where there is no clause. Minor means when some part of any requirement of that particular standard is missing, and major means any particular requirement missing in totality, or some requirement which is not being fulfilled is missing at so many places. So if it is a major non-conformity, then this is an alarming state. It means your system is not working. So this was about environmental auditing. Any questions, sir?
Yes, sir. In the chat box, one question is there. For soil contaminated by petroleum, is soil spillage treatment more difficult than water treatment?
I'll come to bioremediation, sir. Then I'll be
Okay,
talking
okay,
about.
sure.
And
Okay,
I'm after every topic. I'm just trying to ask anything you want to ask about that.
okay, okay, sir.
No question, sir.
No question, sir.
So it means it's not interesting, sir.
No, no, it is interesting, sir.
Okay.
But
So
it
I
is new.
understand.
Most really, it is new to all of us because of this QSAC certification process or like that. So that's why we are finding it very interesting, sir.
Okay, sir.
Thank you,
So
sir.
now I'll be shifting it to environment clearance and forest clearance. So it is particularly of oil industry or any industry, EC and FC. I'll be mentioning it as EC and FC becomes very important because without environmental clearance, and if your particular industry is falling in the forest area, you cannot go for any activity, even if it is a road. So basically, if you look at that way now, in oil industry, there are two categories of well. One is the development well, and one is the exploratory well. Development well, where the things are established, then you are going to find the oil. Exploratory, where the exploration is there, you may or may not be finding oil. If you find the oil, then it becomes later on that area becomes the development well, so that you can do the development activities. So for development wells, the environmental clearance has to be taken from MOFCC Delhi. There is expert appraisal committee, and for exploratory wells, you can get it from SIA and CA. This has started from January 20, I think, or 21, that SIA and CA January 20. and SIEC have been formed, State Expert Environmental Impact Assessment, and one is organization, one is a committee that at the every state level these have been formed. So for any exploration activity in oil industry, you get environmental clearance from state this SIEC or SIA. So this is called terms of reference. They ask for many things, like say for process description. Say you can see this is a drilling rig, right? So well spudding is the start of drilling activity. Top hole section will be drilled to a desired depth based on the well design. So in the GTO is there. On the basis of that, it is designed that how much drilling up to which depth the drilling has to be carried out. This is a drilling bit, which is basically rotating, and by which the drilling is carried out. These are BOP, blowout preventer. This is the hoisting equipment. This is a basically drill sting, drill pipes which are lying there. You can see power supply units, and these are the various cuttings generated. This is if you look at this thing, this is a annular space, and this is a collar. So in just nutshell, this keeps on rotating, and it has a life after which it has to be changed, and the mud fluid. Drilling fluid or drilling mud flows from here and brings the cuttings on the surface which are discarded, right? So after drilling top hole section, it will be cased with a pipe called casing. Say up to some depth, the drilling is done, then casing is done so that hole may not collapse. And after running casing, space between hole wall and casing will be cemented. And the process of drilling and casing the whole section continues until the final well depth is achieved. So the wells will be of slim hole design. So this is basically in a nutshell the process description. So many other things are there. I've just given you the brief of that. So the produced oil and gas will be collected through flow lines, and it is taken. If it is a development well, as I said, for that we have to go to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. It goes to GGS. Once the drilling proves commercial viability, the well will be connected to GGS facilities through a pipeline, and produce oil is pumped to nearest refinery or any other gas station if it is sold to GAIL, BPCL or AGCL, etc. So, for a, in fact, this in the beginning itself, when you apply to MOF CCF, then various terms of reference are given by Ministry of Environment and Forest. Those are to be complied, and those are to be given to back to the MOFCC. So say if you say the duration of exploration well varies from 3 to 4 months, depending on the target, and basically it depends on the depth only. So this is typical well campsite. You can see that this has a transportable campsite, transportable modular container cabins, all the facilities, DG power generation, security arrangements, minimal permanent foundation work, etc. is there. So, TOR also asked to develop you a environment management plan. So that includes, say, wastewater. The sources could be domestic sewage, drilling fluid, rig floor wash water. So management has to be carried out for domestic sewage by having septic tank, and for drilling fluid, reused solar evaporation or treated like effluent treatment plant, mobile effluent treatment plant in the drill site, and rig floor wash water treating along with the waste drilling fluid where this is generated, so it can be treated with the effluent treatment plant. The noise can be generated by DG sets, pump, drilling operations. Then need to have acoustic enclosures and provision of personal protective equipments to the person, those who are working in that particular area. Solid waste generated are drill cuttings, drill mud, and this is collected in the line pit, stabilized and buried and restored with the native soil. So there is a pit, line pit, which HDP line pit is there, where it is, these are stored, and used oil is to be recycled and sent back to the store and the user. And then it includes that ecology and the land requirement also. So this is the environmental management plan, which is to be adopted, which is to be approved by the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So for a development well, when you need environmental clearance, first and foremost is submission of online application, that all the information is to be submitted to the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and then they give terms of reference which is valid. It usually takes 45 to 60 days depending on if some information is lacking, then you need to provide that information, and this is valid for 3 years, then which can be extended for 1 more year. If forest is involved, then you need to have a separate channel also, applied for FRA, applied for FC to MFCC. While if no forestry is involved, then you need to get this baseline data acquisition. So it means you need to get the EIA of that particular place, environmental impact assessment. So that means that what is the present environmental status right now, and what will be the impact of that your activities on that environment, and how you are planning and what you will be doing to bring it back to the normal state. That is the environment management plan, which has to be approved by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and this baseline data has to be corrected. This is a specialized activity, so it requires 3 months. So tender, etc., has to be done for the particular experts from the various organizations are called. They carry out the CIA studies, and then all the information are provided by the user group, and then they prepare an environmental management plan. So this draft EIA report takes 30 days, which then there is one more activity which is called public hearing. Say public hearing is a very tedious activity. So public hearing means that you have to give in the newspapers 1 month before that this public hearing has to be carried out. It has to be in the local newspapers also, so that everybody gets aware. And then you need to, those the village where the activities are to be carried out, those villages pradhan are to be informed. They have to be given a copy of EIA also, and as well as banners are to be placed on those particular places, so they know that such sort of activities are to be carried out by an oil industry. And then during public hearing, it is mandatory that one person from the administration, not below the rank of ADM, and then pollution control board people are sitting, and that is a live recording is there by video, and then presentation is made by the particular organization in a to all those interested persons or villagers or those who have come to attend the public hearing, and in the local language as well as the language which they understand. And if there is any query, that has to be satisfied at that point. This is conducted by the pollution control board. This is not conducted by that organization. So live recording is there. If you are unable to satisfy any query, then this public hearing is cancelled. So this is a very tedious activity that you have to satisfy all the questions raised by interested group or the villagers, that how it is going to be how is it going to have an impact, what are the steps. If it is successful, then this draft report becomes the EIA report, which is to be submitted to expert appraisal committee, MOEFCC, along with the form 2, which is a very elaborate form, to the and then MOFCC Delhi, and then they call for presentation, where the presentation is made to the MOFCC, and they raise many queries, many things they clarify, and after that this EC is granted. So this is such a tedious process. So it takes usually 2 years to get EC for development wells. And this EC is valid for 7 years, which can be extended for 3 years. Now, in oil industry, it is like that you identify a place where it is to be drilled. Then maybe that after, if you don't find so many, probable locations where there is possibility of oil, that may change. So, but then EC is for that particular place. And so you will have to apply again for the EC. Then for exploratory well, so as I said, that State Environmental Impact Assessment Authority and State Environmental SEAC is there. So you have to submit an online application and draft to SEA. Now, in the beginning, it was like that they were also not well informed about the organizations, and organizations were also not well informed about the particular procedure. So there were lots of queries which were raised by in SEA. There are professors from various organizations, Guwahati University, some other university, and they, go into in a very inside of that particular presentation. I made first presentation and it lasted for 4 hours. I made in Guwahati for 4 hours. Then there were lots of queries. Then later on, they realized the procedure also, and we realized their requirement also, that what sort of the maps they required, what are their other requirements, and then the procedure becomes smooth. Then all these things have to be carried out on only once they are satisfied. They may sometimes visit that particular place also, that what are you telling, they would like to just confirm it also. So only then it is granted. So again, it is a tedious process. Only after this environment clearance we start for exploratory or drilling this thing. This is how, just explain, for State Environmental Impact Assessment Authority. Forest clearance is almost different and moves in a very different line, and it is very difficult to get a forest clearance. So you need to application for FRA to DC, then online application, then it goes to nodal officer, state government. Lots of things keep on moving. It does not. It's not that easy I mean, once you submit an application, that may not, there may be certain more requirements. Again, you submit, there may be some more requirements. The nodal officer examined and found okay. Usually, it does not happen. It gives it back. Then they again goes back to online application. You keep on submitting the information, and then it comes to the local DFO level also. Then through CCF, Conservator of Forest, and then if everything okay, which does not happen even 2 3 years also. So because lots of information is required, the divisional forest officer would like to do the site visit, suggest afforestation site, and report submission. So many things are there which keeps on happening. So forest clearance is very difficult for an organization to get, and it should be also, because once you are entering in a forest, then you need to understand the importance of forest. So all steps are taken. Only then the forest clearance is granted. It is granted at 2 level. It goes to regional office Shillong, then it goes to Delhi. First we get the site 1 clearance, then later on stage 1 clearance and stage 2 clearance. It takes 3 4 years, sometimes more than that, 5 6 years also. So for development well also, it is in similar fashion that you need to apply for forest clearance. Application required or CHSCs, or I've written about the corporate HSC which is there at Delhi, which facilitate all these procedures for forest clearance. Again, the same procedure is there, and you need to be, I mean, satisfying all their demands for that. कॉल करता हूँ मीटिंग में, आधे घंटे में कॉल करता हूँ। हाँ, कर देता हूँ, दे भेजता हूँ, भेजता हूँ। Any questions, sir?
Till now, questions, sir.
My voice is clear, sir. I could not hear you.
Till now, questions. It's very clear.
Okay, sir. I'm continuing that. Then now I come to bioremediation. This is the last part of my presentation. Somewhere I've gone fast for covering all these topics. So basically, if you talk of there are 12 institutes in our organization. This is the INBIX, where I'm placed. Here I'm talking about. It was established in 1989, and this is the only institute in ONGC which is talking about the biotechnology and geotectonics. It was established in May 89. It is ISO 9001 certified as well as DSIR recognized RNA institute. The ultimate activities of INBIX are bioremediation of crude oil, geomicrobial hydrocarbon prospecting, MEOR, bacteriological monitoring, drinking water treatment. Then we have pan-IIT projects with IIT Roorkee, IIT Guwahati, with Tezpur University, and sometime Dhrubajyoti University was also involved along with the Tezpur University with INBIX. So this is the core strength of INBIX. As I said that bioremediation, we carry out the bioremediation. We carry out the bioremediation of the effluent as well as the soil. The question was there that whether the soil treatment becomes difficult. See, effluent treatment is sometimes easier as compared to the soil treatment, because effluent treatment you can do it by ETPs also, and for soil treatment you need to get it collected, then you can apply bioremediation or other technique. Or effluent can be treated with simply effluent treatment plant or bioremediation, or by collection of oil from the top of it, and that way it becomes sometimes easier, because ETP is installed at most of the places in the organization in oil industry, so that the spill is not there, right? So the core strengths include microbial enhanced oil recovery, geomicrobial hydrocarbon prospecting. The aim of this is that you carry out, where there is possibility of hydrocarbon is there, and this becomes another tool to strengthen that. Water quality monitoring is carried out for the
ONGC colony, that how the water is being supplied, and this is being monitored on the daily basis. And then we have added this geotectonics also this year, where we have taken two projects where we'll be doing MT studies also along with geochemical analysis. And another thing, that during the time of COVID, INBIX has till date prepared more than 1,000 liters of sanitizer. It was very crucial at the time when nothing was available, everything was closed, and we were not ready for the, such sort of calamity, such sort of thing which suddenly came to us, and everything was locked down. And then at the time, the sanitizer was prepared for the uh, operation purposes, so that there is no hindrance to the operation, and every person remains safe. So that was very important at the time, but now it is available everywhere in the market and every person is using. But in the beginning, we were not habitual of doing that also. So that was crucial at the time. So in INBIX, we have environmental lab, GMP lab, microbiology lab, water lab, Neog lab, and we carry out collaborative project, as I said, with the PAN IIT, IIT Roorkee, IIT Guwahati, where we are working at how the crude oil can be prepared from the algae or some other processes we are carrying out. Then with Tezpur University, we are working on the BIOR project, and QHSE management department is there. So if you talk of the bioremediation, process whereby organic waste can be biologically degraded under controlled condition to an innocuous state or to a level below the respective concentration limit. So it can be ex situ bioremediation or in situ bioremediation. Bioremediation, I understand, is the process which is very clean. It may be a little bit time consuming, but when we carry out effluent treatment, there is possibility of sludge generation, but it gives you a total clean environment. It is a time consuming. So basically, is to clean up the occasion. I'm sorry, it is to clean up the oceans after major oil spill, to protect from environment pollution and the health of living bodies, and protect and encourage aquaculturists, and to prevent soil pollution. These are the place where bioremediation can be used. In usually in oil industry, if there is some pit where some work has been carried out, some oil exists in that pit, or some soil which has oil, this bioremediation can be carried out, but that area needs to remain undisturbed. So if you look at the process of decomposition of hazardous organic compounds, mineralization, where the compounds are oxidized to CO2, water, and biomass. Mineralization with co-metabolism, the microorganisms growing on another substrate and transform to non-toxic form. And biotransformation, where the pollutant is not mineralized but gets transformed to another compound which may or may not be toxic. So if you look at the technology development stages, first is site characterization, assessment for chemical characterization of the contaminant, and physico-chemical analysis of the damaged site. This is the first where the bioremediation has to be carried out. You need to do the site characterization first and foremost. You need to visit, you need to understand how much area you have to cover. Then treatability study, designing parameters based on the kinetics of the contaminate degradation. How much that particular area is degraded, then you need to define first of all. Then you, for commercialization stage, finalization of treatment approach, procurement, fabrication, and pre-commissioning of the required equipment for operation if you don't have. And then ultimately you have to monitor the parameters. It becomes very important that once you start the bioremediation, then you need to carry out the monitoring as well. It's not like that you have consortium of bacteria you just mixed with the particular place, particular contaminated place, and then you forget it. You have to regularly visit, and you will have to see how it is being done. For ex situ bioremediation, the approaches could be land farming or composting. The land farming, if we talk about treatment in bed line by HDP sheet. This HDP sheet, the polymer sheet is high density polymer sheet is usually placed so that there is no, leakage or spillage of that contaminated water effluent to the nearby areas. So that particular bed is to be lined by HDP sheet. Placing of sand over plastic seed as a protection of bed, so that because you are putting HDP sheet where this effluent may be coming and this may be moving, so need to put the plastic sand so that it does not move. Spreading of contaminated soil over the sand bed, augmentation of nutrient buffer or microbes to enhance degradation rate, periodic tilling of soil for oxygen mixing. That is very important, that periodic tilling is to be carried out. Then physical removal of contaminated soil to specially constructed compost shed, and mixing with composting material like straw or wooden chips to enhance water and air holding capacity, periodic mixing or turning for adequate aeration. It is cheaper and has high degradation potential compared to the land farming. For phytoremediation, green plants are used and the associated microorganisms are used. Proper soil amendments and agronomics techniques to remove the toxic environmental contaminants. So what are the possibilities of oil contamination in a drilling process or production installations that you must be hearing from the morning, that people are talking about it, that there could be possibility of leakage, there could be possibility of spillage. If something, God forbid, such situation of blowout occurs, that becomes very dangerous. Then there can be possibility of leakages from pipelines. There can be possibility of leakages from storage tank, oil sludge, as we have identified the hazards. So similarly, for safety and environment, you can see where there is a possibility of oil contamination. You need to identify the possibilities in the beginning and where these activities could be carried out. So if you look at the various strategies of bioremediation, first and foremost is biostimulation, which includes addition of nutrients, electron acceptor, and the oxygen to stimulate existing bacteria, optimization of the environmental condition of the remediation site, and subsurface characteristics for biostimulation, which includes the groundwater velocity of that particular place, hydraulic conductivity of the subsurface, and lithology of the subsurface. And then treatment of contaminated soil with isolated indigenous microbial stain capable of for biodegradation. Then genetically engineered microbes with better ability for biodegradation. So basically, if you look at that, the biological process include that microorganism possess the enzymatic capability to degrade petroleum hydrocarbons. In INBIX, we have consortia of bacteria which we maintain and use at the time. And the readily biodegraded components include normal alkenes from C10 to C26, and aromatics such as benzene, toluene, and xylene. While if you look at the components which are degrading on the with the slower rates include the hydrocarbons having the complex structures, having highly methyl branch substituents, or having lots of condensed aromatic rings. These are the three, complex structures, higher methyl branches, or condensed aromatic rings are degrading with the slower rate as compared to the C10 to C26. This is the principle of bioremediation, that microorganism eat oil or other organic contaminants. Microorganism digest oil and convert it to the carbon dioxide and water. And here you can see that this microorganism is eating the oil. Here the CO2 and H2O is generated, and microorganism gives off CO2 and H2O. While the initial steps in biodegradation of hydrocarbons by bacteria and fungi involve the oxidation of the substrate by oxygenasis, for which the molecular oxygen is required, and thank you. Then alkanes are subsequently converted to carboxylic acids that are further biodegraded via beta oxidation, the central metabolic pathway for utilization of fatty acid from lipids, which results in the formation of acetate, which enters the tricarboxylic acid cycle. Then aromatic hydrocarbon rings generally are hydroxylated to form diols. The rings are then cleaved with the formation of catchols, which are subsequently degraded to intermediates of the tricarboxylic acid cycle. Then fungus or fungi or bacteria from intermediates with differing stereochemistries. If we talk of the fungus or fungi like mammalian enzyme systems from transdiols, where as bacteria almost always form cis diols. So this is the difference if you look at that between bacteria and fungus, that fungi form the transdiols where the bacteria form the cis diols. Many transdiols are potent carcinogenic, whereas cis diols are not biologically active. Bacteria are the dominant hydrocarbon degrader in the marine environment. The biodegradation of the aromatic hydrocarbons results in detoxification and does not produce potential carcinogens. While the complete biodegradation, mineralization of hydrocarbon produces the non-toxic end products, carbon dioxide and water, as well as cell biomass, which is largely protein, which can safely assimilate it into the food web. So this is the chemical process, that this is the hydrocarbon, which is initial attack by oxygenasis, and then degradation by peripheral pathways. Important, लेकिन टाइम लगेगा, आधा घंटा लगेगा।
मैं ट्रक गाड़ी लेकर के आता हूँ, एक घंटा में आता हूँ।
ओके, वो खाना लेने जाएगा मेरा,
आप खाया नहीं?
उसको बोल दो ले।
हाँ, मैं बोलूँ।
Then ultimately, then cell biomass, which lead to growth, the respiration. This is the basic chemical process. So there are various factors which affect the rate of microbial degradation to the hydrocarbon, which include temperature, pH, oxygen, and nutrients. If you look at the lower temperature, in fact, basically this 30 to 40 degree centigrade increases enzymatic activities of mesophilic and thermophilic microorganism, and the biodegradation rate is enhanced. While at lower temperature, It suppresses the microbial growth rates and metabolic activities and decline petroleum degradation, reduces the degree of oil spreading in soil and water due to increased viscosity, and retard the volatilization of short chain like alkane, and hence increasing their solubility and amount in water and soil, thereby increasing microbial toxicity. The also main best temperature range is 30 to 40 degrees centigrade, and above 40 degrees centigrade, the membrane toxicity of hydrocarbon is increased, thus hindering biodegradation. So temperature is optimal. If it is 30 to 40 degrees centigrade, then it is optimal. Maximum biodegradation occurs. Then for if pH biodegradation rates are highest at a pH near neutrality. I mean, if it is 7, then it is the best. Acidic soil environment biodegradation is dominated by fungal population. For alkalophilic bacteria degrades phenolic from wastewater optimally. So, if it is pH is near 7, then the biodegradation is best. Then molecular oxygen is fundamental for degradation. When oil spill is limited to a thin slick on the surface, water surface, biodegradation is limited by oxygen deficiency. So in soil, availability of oxygen is determined by rates of the microbial respiration, type of oil, and presence of available substrate that can lead to the oxygen depletion. So this was about oxygen. Then nutrients. To sustain any microbial activity, the ratio of C and P may be maintained at about 120, 10, and 1. So this is the best ratio. However, during oil spill, the sudden or continuous loading of high amount of C upset the ratios by producing high CNN or high CAP ratios of both, which is detrimental to the microbial growth. So if you maintain ratio at 120, 10, and 1, this is the best ratio. In oceans, lakes, rivers, soils, and aquifers containing oil or petroleum have too low concentration of inorganic subnutrients at the interface between the water insoluble pollutant and the aqueous phase to support the microbial activity. So we need to maintain this ratio, which will give you the best result. So when we're talking of our organization, where I'm placed right now as head in BIC, so we, in collaboration with MBBT, Tejpur University, isolated a bacterial consortium C2, and C2 consortium is capable of degrading petroleum crude oil from contaminated soil. The bacterial consortium was obtained from the all contaminated soil of well sites of Assam and Assam-Arakan basin. So this our ONGC Jorhat basin is called as Assam and Assam-Arakan basin. So this bacterial consortium was obtained from the oil contaminated soil of this particular place only, so that it is much more, efficient. Maintained and multiplied mixed microbial consortium at INBIC's lab. This continues throughout the year, and this is applied at various contaminated effluent pits with nutrients urea, rock phosphate, and NPK, and then periodically monitored oil content and observed gradual decrease by bacterial action, and then successfully we have completed many sites and treated much more effluent. I'll be talking about that. So materials and methods involved. Isolation. Slides are moving, sir?
Yes, sir, moving.
Because it was not moving here. So materials
No,
and
sir,
methods.
it's fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Isolation and identification of oil degrading microbial stain. That is the first thing. Isolated hydrocarbons degrading microbial stains, preserved and maintained by regular activation and deactivation in your labs of INBICS, as I told you. So it is a mixed stains with C2 consortium developed through collaborative R&D project, including surfactant producing bacteria and mass culture. Then augmented consortia was applied at the various sites. Then crude oil contaminated oil samples from collected oil contaminated sites of ONGC oil field of Upper Assam and inoculated in Bushnell Haas medium. And the final pH of the culture broth was adjusted to, as I said, near neutral, uh, uh, plus minus by 2 of 7. Then autoclaved crude oil was added to the culture as a sole source of carbon and energy. The culture was kept in a shaker incubator with 180 RMP at 37 degrees centigrade. And after 10 days of incubation, 1 ml from the culture broth was transferred to another unmarred flask containing 100 ml of Bushnell Haas medium supplemented with 2% crude oil. Incubated at the same condition, the process was repeated 4 or 5 times. The pure single individual bacteria strains from the above cultures were finally obtained by serial dilution technique followed by spread plate method. Bacterial strains were grown in LB agar media at 37 degrees and incubated overnight. So in 3000 ml conical flask, media was taken, sterilized in autoclave at 120 degrees centigrade temperature and 15 psi pressure for 15 minutes. Then this media was inoculated with mixed consortium under aseptic condition in luminar airflow equipment. NHN 1% was added to each flask as a sole carbon source. For jubilant growth of microbes all over the flask were placed in a shaker incubator at 180 rpm at 37 degrees centigrade temperature for constant mixing and aeration. So mineral salt medium for seed culture include urea, magnesium sulfate, ammonium sulfate, calcium chloride, disodium hydrogen phosphate, ferrous sulfate, copper sulfate, boric acid, manganese sulfate, zinc sulfate, molybdenum trioxide, and N-hexadecane. So mass culturing of oil degrading consortia with the same composition of MSM media, constant agitation by mechanical stirrer, pH of the media, as I said, near neutrality. The MS media was sterilized in an autoclave at 120 degrees centigrade temperature and 15 psi pressure. And then after sterilization, the media was cooled to room temperature and inoculated with the fresh seed culture prepared. So this is how we are carrying out. Then air was supplied to the bug culture by an air compressor through a line filter of 0.2 micron. The crude oil was added as a sole carbon source. Growth of the microbes was ascertained by determining the optical density at 600 nm and also by microscopic examination. So now after it is the laboratory work, then when you are carrying out the R&D work, then when you apply into the field, then you have to be very particularly careful. Sometimes the situation condition may differ from the laboratory, that how you are applying and how you are monitoring, that becomes the more important. As I said, that now the bulk culture is prepared in tanks in INBIX laboratory. Then microbial culture will apply to the contaminated area with the nutrient minerals. Effluent samples were collected periodically. Our scientist keeps on visiting. In fact, basically it is like this. Once you take a pit for bioremediation, then it has to be remain undisturbed. And then our scientist keeps on visiting, collecting sample and carrying out analysis. What is the progress? And then ultimately, finally, it has to be brought down within the permissible limit. And then effluent samples collected periodically and analyzed in the laboratory by UV spectrophotometer. Then bioremediation process is monitored until and unless it is finally brought to the permissible limit. Tilling and watering is, as I said, is done periodically to maintain the aeration, which becomes important, as I have explained to you earlier. Then watering of the bioremediation site to maintain the moisture content of the soil. So usually our thinking is to divide it into 4 blocks, which can be further subdivided into further blocks, and then equal quantity of samples are randomly collected from sub-block. And then they are collected by using a hollow stainless steel pipe of 3 inch diameter of 50 cm in length. and which is to be inserted to the bottom, and then 16 samples mixed uniformly to get a homogenized composite mixture. This is how we carry out this thing, and then this samples collected at 0 day and after regular interval till the completion of job. So then how to monitor the oil contents? I'll skip this in effluent samples and soil samples. This is how it is carried out in the laboratory. And this I'll show you some of the results that this has been brought down to after bioremediation, like if you from 126 to 5, and where it is high, it is in the progress. And what is the oil content in ppm? You can see that most of the things it has even come down to the 6.6.765, but the time taken is slightly higher in bioremediation. And another condition is that it should be undisturbed. And then the if it is 264, it can be brought down to 6. In 56 days, 216 to 9, 345 to 8 in 122 days. And it is like this that if 3 pits we're talking about, that in 122 days or even before that, it has been brought down to within permissible limits. And you can see all these things that various the samples which have been collected sometime long back have been brought down within the permissible limit after continuous monitoring. And see what is the difference that if you add this without bacteria or you do oil degradation with bacteria. Say if oil content is 1000 ppm in 71 days, it has come down to 850 ppm if we don't add this C2 consortium bacteria. But where we have added, it has come down to 175, which has to further brought down to the within permissible limit. But just for an example, that without adding bacteria and with adding bacteria, this is the difference. So these are certain other examples that how it has been brought down to within permissible limit. Permissible limit is 10 ppm as per the requirement of Pollution Control Board and Water Act. So you can see that in various places it has been conducted, and you can see this. That this was a site before bioremediation, and this is after bioremediation. This is the area which has been, the whole area. This is however well within the permissible limit, well within the permissible boundary, and which HDP lining, so that there is no leakage, and how this has been changed to this situation. So that's why I say that bioremediation is the clean, very clean technology, and this can be applied. But the only thing is that 2 more conditions you need to, the other jobs you need to carry out as per the requirement, but the site has to be remain undisturbed. It should not be like that you are conducting bioremediation and some inflow is occurring, and periodically monitoring is to be carried out. And time taking is slightly higher, because in ATP you just get the result like that only, that you take your effluent goes to ATP, it comes out, treated effluent comes out with the dosing, chemical dosing, or if it is secondary tertiary treatment, that can be done. But then you get sludge where that has to be treated again, and that has to be tackled again in any ATP. And even if it is on the Ganga river or somewhere at other place, Narmada river or Brahmaputra, if ATP is there, we will have a sludge which has to be again taken care. So you can see this is the oil, this is the permissible, the area, stipulated area, and then how it has changed. You can see this before bioremediation, how the area looked like. This is the well boundary area where the site was taken. This is how after remediation it looks like. This is another example. This again you can see. This is before bioremediation, and this is after bioremediation. It takes time. It takes your efforts. You have to apply your C2 consortium bacteria, then you have to do tilling, you have to do other activities, you have to maintain pH, everything you have to carry out, but ultimately then The result is excellent. So this is soil before bioremediation and after bioremediation. You can see the difference. But as I said, the limiting factors are time and the area has to remain undisturbed. This is the HDP lining to prevent spillage to any nearby areas. So in INBIX, taking for a few years data that we have carried out in 2014-15, 14,000 cubic meter of effluent, and last year we have done 17,050 cubic meter. So it depends that what are the requirements and what are the requirements given to us by maybe Assam asset, maybe basin, maybe uh, and Jorhat asset. So depending on that, the bioremediation is carried out. Now, the total 11 numbers of effluent pits bioremediation completed in 2021, and in 80 numbers of bioremediation is in progress. Um, that is to be completed by March. So bioremediation is a popularly used worldwide for cleaning up oily effluent and petroleum hydrocarbons contaminated soil, and being carried out in NE for 20 years by INBIX. As I said, it was established in 89. So bioremediation process utilizes hydrocarbons, utilizing microbes and nutrients to decompose contaminated, transforming into non-hazardous byproducts like water, carbon dioxide, and biomass. Yes, this bioremediated soil is found to be non-toxic and it does not have any adverse effect on seed germination. And this has helped oil and gas industries in disposal of oil waste sludge in an environment-friendly manner. So this was about the bioremediation. So I think I'm just completed things in time, 2 hours allotted to me. So I end with the presentation.
Thank you, sir, for such a detailed, practical, engaging, and informative session. And participants, you can unmute yourself if you have any query. I think no query. Thank you, sir, for sharing your experience about QHSE certification process, which is required to maintain a proactive system that will help in reduction of accidents. And we have come to know about this certification validation last for 3 years. That is a new information of us, and thank you for sharing details about ISO 45000:2018 system, and for this BARTS model, which give a chance to know the status of skipping the near misses risks. And thank you for also for, we really appreciate the outstanding presentation regarding environmental clearance procedure, which we have come to know about this procedure for development well, explorative well, and environmental clearance for well site that come on the forest areas, and bioremediation processes. So it was a very detailed discussions from you, sir, and we have come to know many things regarding the entire processes. And thank you, sir, for sharing your time and experiences with us. And I would like to offer my deep sense of appreciation and sincere thanks to Dr. Bhutani, sir, for your gracious presence in this FDP. Before we end this session, sir, I would like to request to be with us for a couple of moments so that we can take a group photo session with our research person along with the participants. Participants are requested to kindly turn on their videos for a photo session. Thank you all. Once again, I would like to thank Dr. Bhutani sir for being with us in this session at my request. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you,
Thanks a
sir.
lot, sir. I would like to thank all the attendees for being in this session and making it a successful one. We'll meet again in our next session at 3 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Come here.